We will call our meeting to order tonight. Kelly, if you would have the honors of doing our roll call tonight.
Edinger,
Here.
McEvers,
Here.
Gookin,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
English,
Here.
Evans.
Here.
We will stand for our invocation. We have Mike Slothauer with the River of Life Friends Church with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for the privilege of prayer. If you'd bow your heads with me. Father in heaven, we love you, and we thank you for spring. We thank you for green grass, and we thank you for our waters flowing and seeing tourists come and enjoying what we get to see all the time. It's been a long winter, and so it's nice to see blue skies again. We pray tonight, Lord, that as we gather for the City Council meeting, that you would put our hearts in unity. We pray, Father, for wisdom for each City Council member and the mayor, and we just thank you for all those who serve our community. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Woody, lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda tonight, but before we get started, tomorrow one of us, amongst us, is having a birthday. And so I think it's only appropriate that we all sing happy birthday to Ron Edinger, who has a couple of birthdays under his belt, but you have a birthday tomorrow, so we're going to all sing you happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Woody will have you start us off.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ron. Happy birthday to you.
I hope I can be so old that my birthday can be expressed in scientific notation.
And your bride just had a birthday as well, and she's much, much younger, right?
Well, yeah, she is younger, yes. Yeah, I'm 39.
39.
You and Jack Benny.
All right. So we will move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council on city business shall have 3 minutes to do so. And Susie is gearing up, and she's ready.
Sorry, I need to turn this up a little bit. Sorry, I may pause midstream. My breathing is sometimes a little odd. No, right now it's really odd. Thank you. Oh, God. I forgot my glasses. Sorry.
That's okay.
The anticipation is killing me, Susan.
I'll try not to clunk this. Mr. Mayor, council members, as a citizen of this city, I expect not only transparency, but also your critical review of each and every financial transaction, including the proposed land deal with St. Vincent de Paul, which I realize the hearing is in 2 weeks, but I have to do it today. A bit of background. In 2011, the city purchased 102 and 106 Homestead for a total of $500,000. Remember that figure, please. The rent from the units was to be applied to the annual lease payment of $10,000. It seems that St. Vincent's collected the rent, but failed to pay the city their lease payment for years. According to an email from Troy Tymason, the city entered into a settlement agreement on the 21st day of June 2016 with St. Vincent in the amount of $67,564.41 for the lease agreement that began on May 3rd, 2011, which mutually terminated the lease agreement. Please note that the negotiated dollar amount was based on Financials provided by St. Vincent de Paul. That's in Troy's email. If my math is correct, this would be a loss for the taxpayers in the amount of $83,436, if my math is correct. Now, we have a proposed land trade. According to my property assessment, land values appear to have skyrocketed, yet the city values Homestead at the original purchase price 8 years later. Does that mesh with your figures on your house? Note that the land trade properties on Sherman are valued, not appraised, at $800,000, and traded for the Homestead properties valued, not appraised, at 211 value. Purchase of, no, I'm sorry. Now, here we go. Traded for the Homestead properties valued, not appraised, at 2011 purchase of $500,000, plus $300 cash we just happen to have, to equal $800,000. One might wonder why the purchase price of the Sherman, why the 2011 purchase price, while the Sherman properties appear to be valued in 2019 dollars. Frankly, I find the haste to purchase these parcels questionable. Many parcels have been on the market for some time, yet apparently, and that's on Sherman, thanks, Jeff, but apparently did not interest the city. The lack of appraisals for each parcel brings forth many questions. The cost of the remediation of the property comes to mind as important. It appears that the purchase is not well enough thought out, as there is no formal adopted master plan for East Sherman and no specific plans for these parcels. Well, we want to do this, we may do this, we may do this. Nothing adopted. So, as long as the city has a spare $300,000, I suggest they spend it on repairing the roads that need more than a little help. Or you could finally complete the installation of improvements shown on the adopted master plan for Person Field. In closing, it's the responsibility of each and every one of you to do your due diligence before you consider this land swap. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Any questions? Snedeker. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Not one question.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Jeez.
Go ahead.
the hearing is going to be next council meeting at.
I know. Oh, they'll ask the questions
But
then.
you're not here.
I know.
You're out of town.
No, I'm not out of town. I just can't attend.
Oh, you can't, you're unable to attend. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to come up for public comment, please come on up. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, so we will move on now to presentations. Kathleen Goodwin. Kathleen, you're here, and this is a proclamation for National Safe Boating Week. And I have a proclamation to read, and Kathleen can give us a message. So the proclamation reads, whereas on average 700 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, and nearly 70% of these fatalities are caused by drowning. Whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment, and not by the boat, equipment, or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn life jackets. And whereas modern life jackets are more comfortable, more attractive, and more wearable than styles of years past and deserve a fresh look by today's boating public. Now, therefore, I, Steve Widmeyer, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th through May 24th, 2019 as National Safe Boating Week. So thank you for being here, and I'll come down and present this to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I say a few things? You bet. Mr. Mayor, City Council, audience, This is National Safe Boating Week. We normally have it this time of year, and we really, really push the safety on the water. We live in a paradise with mountains, pristine lakes. We want everybody to be safe on the water. But the problem this time of year, in another month or so too, the temperature is very hot, but the water is very cold. So people think they can just frolic in the water, jumping from boats or whatever, and then they hop in the water and they gulp because the water is so cold. And so that's when a lot of the accidents occur. We propose that people need to wear life jackets. This is Doug Harris. He's flotilla commander of our Coeur d'Alene Flotilla 84. And we want to just emphasize that life jackets save lives. There are over 100 life jacket loaner kiosks from the Idaho Department and Park of Rec and Recreation that people can borrow the life jackets and return them. Some don't, some do. I've seen them on people. I've seen them on three-legged black labs. And anyway, we want people to be safe. So please, please wear your life jacket. Life jackets save lives. Would you like to say something, Doug?
You've said it all.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Oops.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on in our presentations. We have Nicole Coeur and Marcy Hartzell here, and they're going to give us a CDA 2030 progress update. So welcome.
That mouse is kind of weird, isn't it? There we go. Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Marcy Hartzell, and I'm the board chair for CDA 2030, and this is Nicole Coeur. She's our executive director. First, I would like to say thank you for having us this evening. Second, I would also like to point out two particular members of your council, Amy Evans and Kiki Miller. Amy is a current board chair for CDA 2030, and Kiki Miller is a past board chair, and I want to say thank you for your support. As we get rolling into the presentation, I'll present a portion of it, and Nicole will step in just a few minutes. I think it's important to quickly recap who we are and where we started. In 2013, we started as a project to update the CDA 2020 goals that were established in 2001 by the city. Information was gathered through public forums and workshops, surveys, meetings, questionnaires, opinion polls, and interviews. Residents with diverse backgrounds expressed their ideas and provided input. As a result of the community-wide effort involving thousands of our fellow citizens, a long-range vision and implementation plan for Greater Coeur d'Alene was created. Our vision is what our community aspires to be in the year 2030, and our implementation plan is the path that maps out how we are going to achieve our vision. The plan includes 36 strategies, 180 actions, and 6 focus areas. In June of 2014, the Coeur d'Alene City Council passed a resolution adopting the Community Vision Statement, Strategies, and Implementation Plan. CDA 2030 started out as a community project organized and ran by a few community members, but then slowly turned into a nonprofit organization with a wide reach and breadth of services. Now our organization works to lead partners to implement priority actions as well as monitor and track the plan to ensure it's a living and breathing document. On this slide, you'll see our mission. CDA 2030's overarching mission is to guide the Greater Coeur d'Alene community in realizing its vision for a bright future together. As a nonprofit group, we help local businesses, government, community organizations carry out the CDA 2030 vision and implementation plan. We strive to spark action, enhance collaboration, and be the neutral conveners. The board of directors is made up of 23 volunteer community members. These individuals are leaders who represent a cross-section of our community, including city government, education, health and wellness, finance, real estate, private business, nonprofit organizations, and the Coeur d'Alene tribe. An additional 10 committee members serve on our marketing, implementation, and sustainability committees. The organization is staffed by Executive Director Nicole Kaler and Project Coordinator Marie Nail, who's sitting in the audience, for a total of 1.5 positions. In our 2019 budget, it equaled $511, sorry. The majority of the budget is directed towards payroll expenses. The conservative budget is leveraged with volunteer time provided by our skilled board members and our committed committee members. Our standard budget has been around $100,000 for the past 3 years. However, this year, we added an extra $23,000 to support the vision and implementation plan validation process, which you know better as the Envision Coeur d'Alene. CDA 2030 would not be able to function without financial support. On this slide, we recognize over 42 sponsors. We are so grateful for 2 in particular, and I'll point out tonight, the City of Coeur d'Alene and Ignite CDA for their funding for CDA 2030. It is with their confidence and support that we're able to exist. We also thank all of our individual donors and private business sponsors as well. Since January, we have raised $14,788 of private business sponsors. So how can this plan be accomplished by 2030? The answer is simple, but the process is more complex. The answer is with the help of lead partners. We have 46 lead partner organizations committed to assist with implementation. We have an additional supporting partners that help these organizations move this vision forward. And you can see from this slide, these represent the 46 different partners that we have that take on the different action items within the plan. Some past initiatives that many of you might be familiar with that I wanted to touch on. Since our last report to the city, which I believe was in 2017, we have partnered with community to implement a few key initiatives. We trained 184 community members in CPR at no cost, and this was at our Keep the Beat event. The goal was to increase the number of citizens trained in CPR. In the event that there's an emergency, we can stabilize with those people that are trained throughout the community. We partnered with the Idaho Department of Labor and KTEC to implement a soft skills curriculum through the Workplace Excellence Series. The curriculum teaches practical skills, including how to adapt, write and communicate effectively, present oneself, and be reasonable and dependable. We also coordinated and hosted the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Panel, it's a mouthful, and through their recommendations proceeded with the Urban Renewal Feasibility Study to assist with planned growth in the active and growing health corridor. We facilitated the Performing Arts Market Analysis and Feasibility Study with expert consultants from HVS Convention, Sports and Entertainment Facilities Consulting. We also raised funds and implemented a bike repair station located next to the Centennial Trail right in McEwen Park. We have collaborated with various organizations to support progress in the community across those 6 focus areas. Some of these partners were provided seed funding through our annual celebration event on-the-spot grants. In this slide, you can see Power of Produce, Gizmo 32 Saturdays, the Theodores, and the Ability app all were on-the-spot grant winners at our summer event. Several of these partnerships have resulted in multi-year initiatives, including Parking It on Sherman, Our Gem Symposium, and Jingle Books. In addition to our organization goals, each year our board identifies some key projects that they want to assist with. These projects are prioritized above others for various reasons. Sometimes it has to do with funding, sometimes it has to do with the lead partner willing to take on that activity, sometimes it just has to do with timing. Along with these overarching projects, each committee identifies yearly goals and actionable items. Each January, we have a retreat where we develop and hammer out our strategic plan. We have 3 committees: the Implementation Committee, Sustainability Committee, and Marketing Committee. On this slide, you can see the implementation committee has 6 goals. Collaborate with Envision Coeur d'Alene, which is our main goal right now for this year. Complete the East Sherman Master Plan. Support opening books and opening doors. Create an evaluation process for proposed priority actions. We often, above our goals that we often have people come to us and ask to help with projects. So we implemented a review process for that so that we can weigh out how that rolls through and aligns with the rest of the priorities. Support lake management and our GEM symposium, and support efforts related to affordable, quality, early care and education. And we'll talk more about these when Nicole comes up. The Sustainability Committee, their goals were to raise $40,000 in private donations. We're about halfway there. Renew funding from City of Coeur d'Alene and renew funding from Ignite CDA, which are our 2 major sponsors. Save a year's worth of standard operating budget, which is about $1,000. The marketing committee's 2 major goals were to improve communication and awareness of the organizational mission and accomplishments to the community, and determine if we need to change our logo and do some rebranding. We've had this logo for a while, and with the Envision Coeur d'Alene process, we're thinking that it might be a good time to update that.
Thank you, Marcy. As Marcy mentioned, I'm here to talk a little bit more about our priority actions. So these are some exciting things that our board and committee members are working on this year. A new priority action that our board selected this year is early care and education, also known as childcare or preschool. Evidence overwhelmingly supports that childhood education makes a significant benefit in a child's school readiness, a family's ability to work, and community prosperity. However, providing high-quality care is expensive, and recruitment and retention of quality providers is very challenging. Panhandle Health District, United Way of North Idaho, and Mountain State Early Head Start has developed a task force which we participate in to address some of these challenges. Just recently, United Way was awarded a Preschool the Idaho Way grant, as well as a grant from Idaho Health and Welfare to address some of these issues. Initially, this will fund development of a business-supported model for early care as a benefit to an employee, similar to what Kootenai Health does for their employees. Then we'll work on strengthening the early care and education workforce by investing in professional development, providing support for business plans and training for those who want to open a child care center, and then by creating streamlined pathways into early care and education careers to expand the pool of qualified individuals in our community. Lastly, we will implement a public information campaign to explain to the community the need and provide a call to action for our business and community leaders. Our next priority project is one you're very familiar with. It's the East Sherman Master Planning Project. We have collaborated with the city since 2015, and we are really excited to see the master plan wrap up and some changes to start to take place in the corridor. In collaboration with the city, we have held 2 open houses, stakeholder interviews, approximately 30 of them, a transportation audit, and 4 parking it on Sherman events. This was really to gather community input and gain support for changes in the corridor. In 2017, we co-authored a $70,000 community builder grant with the city planning department and were awarded. The team has worked with community builders to launch a project website, create a leadership committee, host a strategy workshop and design studio, and test popular changes on the 1600 block. We are now currently working on completing that master plan. The next is Opening Books, Opening Doors, a community initiative of Inovia Foundation. This initiative is created to ensure by 2020, all students in the Coeur d'Alene School District exiting 3rd grade will meet reading proficiency goals. This is an important benchmark for future success. Our key strategies through this partner are kindergarten readiness, quality teachers in literacy-rich environment, parent engagement, and out-of-school learning opportunities. Multiple programs have been implemented, from innovative continuing education for our teachers here in the district to summer backpack programs for students who are not meeting proficiency goals. This year, approximately 700 students will receive a backpack in our district. CDA 2030 directly coordinates the Adopt a Classroom Library Program. This is for new teachers who are typically new college graduates with little supplies or support. For only $500, individuals, businesses, and organizations can build a classroom library here in the district and create that literacy-rich environment. Positive impacts on the 12 classrooms that have been adopted this year are dramatic. And as our district grows and we continue to recruit new teachers, this program will continue to fill a gap. And then the last program that I will talk about is Envision Coeur d'Alene. In preparation for the 5-year anniversary of our implementation plan, which you all have a copy of, we are launching Envision Coeur d'Alene with the city. This will revisit the language and make sure that it is relevant as our community, trends, and technologies change. Envision Coeur d'Alene is a unique public listening campaign designed to gather opinions, to update the CDA vision and implementation plan, as well as the city's comprehensive plan. Information will focus our efforts to the current needs of our community. Public outreach is slated for this fall. In closing, we are the organization held responsible for moving our community's vision and implementation plan forward. We are leveraging the talent of our 23 board members, 10 committee members, and multiple community partners to the benefit of the city, and we are excited to continue our work in the community. We thank you for your time and continued support.
Thank you. Any questions for Marcy or Nicole? Dan?
Well, since the East Sherman Master Plan is kind of a hot topic lately, what is your timeline for completing that?
We're working with the city and community builders to define that timeline at this point, so I don't actually have a date for you, but I know that the plan is very close to being ready for release.
Is it safe to ask, like, before the end of the calendar year soon?
We might look at the
Come on up,
city
Hillary.
for that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. So to answer your question, we are in communications with community builders. We've already expended all of their funds through that grant. And so now we're just trying to figure out how much it would cost to have them help fix some of the things in the master plan. And we'll bring it forward to Leadership Committee, Planning Commission, and City Council. But yes, definitely before the end of the calendar year.
Oh, good.
It's
Okay.
very close, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kiki?
Just a quick thing. It looks like the child care initiative is new, a new thing that you're moving forward with. So I had two things. How many of the implementation items or vision community requests were involved around early child care? And how are or will you be coordinating with the Child Care Commission that this city has?
We have one action in the implementation plan around affordable childcare, and the leaders, Sam from Panhandle Health and Carrie Stark from United Way, are close. I believe they actually serve on the Child Care Commission and have linked them in, but I will double check that for you
Perfect.
tomorrow.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we will move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement tonight? Kiki?
Just one. I wanted to let council know that our planning director, Hillary Anderson, did a fabulous job updating North Idaho Building Contractors Association meeting on ADUs, upcoming changes with infill, conversation, comp plan, and I'm very encouraged about how many folks are getting involved and the cooperative work between multiple municipalities who were there. So thanks for doing that, and there's a lot of conversations at the table in that arena. So
Great. Anyone else have anything? All right, we will move on to the consent calendar. That means you, Woody.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of consent calendar, including Resolution 19015.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Kelly.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to other business. This is resolution number 19-016, an agreement with LaRiviere Construction for $2,660,000 to build the new Water Department Administration and Maintenance Building. Terry Pickle is here tonight. Welcome, Terry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening to bring this contract forward. With that, we'll go into just a little bit of history and have a little bit of fun with it. First, I wanted to give a howdy from downtown Coeur d'Alene. I found this picture while I was cruising around looking for some pictures for the presentation, and I just couldn't resist sticking it in there. Anybody notice, other than Councilmember Miller, a topic in there that's been discussed today?
Parking meters, yeah.
Woody got it? Thank
I think
you.
I see Ron.
Might be, he might have one of those cars in there at that time. This is the original Idaho water site. Of course, as you know, Idaho Water was the original water purveyor for the city. This was the water master's house here, and this was the original plant that supplied water to the system through lake water intakes. We've always tried to be innovative. Here's a drive-through pay-as-you-go window for the water bills, circa late 1960, early 70. Once the water company was taken over by the city, they were moved from that site and the buildings were torn down. And they did function out of the City Hall basement for a period of time. I'm not sure how many years, but they did work out of that and then stored the materials at the old site. So as you can see here, downtown Coeur d'Alene with City Hall there. The offices were moved for a period of time over to Harbor Center. So they had a great view of the river. Wish it was still there. That it would have been nice. But once that went to NIC and Lewis and Clark College, the city was, or the water offices were moved out of there. We did take up residence in a shop that still exists today over on Ramsey Road. We ran into some problems with methane from the dump, and a few employees got sick, and so it was decided to move from this site. It has since been remediated, and the methane issues have been taken care of by property owners, and that did belong to NIC for a period of time as a tech center, and now it's Lake City Rental. So from there, we moved to the Ramsey Complex, where we exist today. We paid for a third of the concrete building, that's 3800 Ramsey Road. We later added an office building there, and as you see, buildings have been added consistently to the site. There's no longer storage for sand, gravel for either us or the street department. So we're running out of room and getting congested there, and access is becoming very limited with the traffic on Ramsey. So they're looking at alternatives to potential access off of Kathleen, but there's still a lot of traffic on that as well. So we are proposing to relocate. Well, let's go back to where we are. This is our part of the shop there. There's about a third of that building that would, if we did vacate it, would revert to the street department for their expansion. There are 2 offices housed in there that we currently have, and so that'd make a little bit of space there. This is the water department office as it exists now. There are only 4 customer parking spaces there, I wanted to point out. 2 of those are handicap accessible, and we function as the ADA access for the street department as well, because they do not have the parking and they do not have an elevator capable of moving people upstairs. So we function as that point for them as well. Here's looking out our back door at the new police and fire buildings. As I said, the sand piles and gravel piles went away, and we've had to move those off-site to other locations, as well as street departments had to do so also. Looking north at the Fire Training Center and their training areas. To the east there a little bit is the Salt and Brine Center for the streets de-icing unit. And looking to the south, we filled it up with shops and storage. So very little room on the site anymore. So as I said, we propose to move to the Howard facility, which is the eastern half of where the compost facility is. We have about 4.5 acres staked out there. This was our initial site layout. It's kind of changed a little bit with what we're looking at doing there. We've already added a water line in there and fire hydrants. We've removed about 3.5 feet of black topsoil that was unsuitable to build on and brought in suitable fill dirt from the Wild Waters and other places we've been able to locate it at. We've got it compacted, we've had it tested, so it's ready for building. We've done frontage improvements. This is looking at our middle gate. We put in a pad for a bulk water fill station so trucks can pull off of the roadway and access water for construction and sweeping purposes. We've added the trees, added the sidewalk, put in the extra gate. This will be our access for the public on the southern portion of the site. Sidewalk and trees are all in there. There's actually curb radiuses and part of the street's already constructed. This is our proposed floor plan. We're looking at a 100 by 25 or 250 foot building, offices in the front, a heated shop in the center that will house some of our sensitive construction equipment that cannot freeze, and our operations center, as well as our meter maintenance. We're looking at being able to test meters in the future with a new test bench so that we can recertify meters and put them back out instead of having to buy new ones each and every year. That should save about $70,000 to $80,000 a year in meter purchases. And there's a cold storage that will house material storage and some service vehicles, trying to get them out of the sun to prolong that life. This is a profile view of the building. It's very plain. We've tried to keep it functional. It's a steel building. The top view is the street side. We're going to be looking at some potential artwork there to kind of dress it up a little bit that we can do, because we'll have to add art to the site as well as paying into the art fund. We were already well aware of that, so we'll work that feature in there. We'll also have some landscaping on the street side that will be water smart landscaping, so we'll have 3 different demonstration areas that will house low water use plants, efficient irrigation systems, and try to make it still attractive for the public and give them some ideas on what they can do for water conservation. The business side, where the doors are, where we'll be working out of, will be towards the compost facility, so that should cut down on the noise and visibility from the street so that we don't have complaints from the public. We've decided to go to clear span steel construction. According to everything that I could find and according to our architect, this is probably the most affordable and most efficient way to construct the building. It gives us an expandability in the future and a lot of options that we wouldn't have with other building types. We did look at pole buildings, but with the size of the building we're looking at, we're at the very limit for what they can do with those, and that's probably even stretching it a little bit. 100-foot clear span in a wood construction is very difficult. Our old building was tilt-up concrete panel. We briefly looked at that and thought, no, that's not going to work, so we shied away from that. It doesn't give you the expandability that you need in the future, and this day and age is very expensive. Our architect prepared the bid documents. We went out to bid. We did have a pre-bid meeting halfway through the bid area, or bid time. We had about 8 contractors that actually initially attended that. 5 of those contractors did bid, which we thought were pretty good. Unfortunately, we did come in over budget. We had a budget of $2.45 million based on our estimate a year and a half ago for budget purposes, so that's what we were told we would probably be in the neighborhood of about 2.25. The lowest bid came in at $2,660,000 as we put forward here. That's about 8% over our budget. We feel that that's probably the best we're going to do with what we're looking at there for the site and improvements, with steel prices going up, labor forces with the economy going crazy. So we're looking at a contract for that. We had about 11% spread from the lowest to highest bids. Our proposal is to move forward with the contract. We don't anticipate busting the bottom line. We do know we'll bust that line item if we go that far. It is a 300 calendar day contract, so it will not be completed in this fiscal year. So we'll know that we'll probably spend at least between 2 and 2.2 million this fiscal year, so we're rolling over some money into the next fiscal budget. We're going to work with our contractor to figure out exactly what that needs to be, so we're pretty close with it. But as I pointed out, from what we originally budgeted in the 2019 budget and what we have projected to utilize, we had a couple of projects that are not going to go fully funded because of issues with easements that we're going to have to get along Hutter Road for a transmission main. That kind of pushed things out a bit. We'll be drilling a new well. The initial engineering came in a lot less than what we anticipated, as we were able to reutilize a lot of the engineering from the Ralph Capal well, so that saved us about $100,000 in that project. As I mentioned, the transmission main, we're going to build another one over on Hedberg and Boyd over to 23rd from Elm Street Booster Station, so that will be a lot less. We'll roll those funds into next year to build the transmission main from along Hutter from Celtis Way to the new well site. So with that, I will look forward to council's pleasure.
Questions for Terry? Dan?
Well, just to clarify, and it might be a you and or Troy question, but like for that large building project and the equipment and everything, the water department runs on like user fees and enterprise funds, so it's not general like property tax that's paying for it. It's part of what's in the system, and it's expected to have these kinds of expenses as you go along.
Correct. And we have cash accumulated from past savings for the past few years with the warm temperatures and budgeting wisely and not spending as much on projects. So we do have sufficient cash to actually pay for the building at this point. We have about $3.295 million in reserve to do this, so it will not come out of any new user fees. It was not included in the rate study, so it will not impact future rate users or rate payers. So.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ron?
Terry, when would you like to start this project?
We anticipate starting right away as soon as we get the contract approved. It will take about 3 months, is what we've been told, to get the building package. They have to engineer the package itself. We've had it designed by an architect, but the building has to be designed by the company that supplies it, which in turn also designs the footings for it. So that will take, we've been told, roughly about 3 months. But we'd like to get started on construction right away.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Terry, I'm happy that you can spend money here to buy this thing without having to go into debt, so that we're not borrowing money. That's good. It does concern me that you had the $3.2 million in cash, which if that's savings, if we're saving money, that's always good, but we just increased our rates, so we weren't saving that much. Was this money originally allocated for something else?
A portion of it was allocated for other projects that we didn't spend it on that have to be pushed out into the future. They're planned for in the capital plan. We're trying also to build a emergency reserve fund. So that's a portion of what that cash is going to.
I understand. And finally, just a general comment for Troy and administration, which is this decision would be a lot easier if we had a facilities master plan, and we don't have one. I asked a couple of months ago if we had one, but the northern campus, as you pointed out, is getting crowded. There's a lot of stuff going there, and it would just be really good as policymakers here if we had some type of, here's where we want to be in 20 years, even if it's something that never really happens. Just doing that would help guide our decision here to say that this is something, definitely we support in the past, and that it's something that we can manage, the composting facility where you're headed was originally given that size for a certain reason. We don't know why it was so big, but I'm glad that they're able to accommodate you. I just feel more comfortable if we had something to rely on that was a study that would say, yeah, this will work. I think it'll work.
Yeah.
I'm going to support it, but just looking forward, that would be a good thing to help us.
Right. We've
Thanks.
started on the master plan for the Ramsey Complex several times. Things get busy, it gets dropped because it's on the back burner. In the fall, it gets picked back up again. They're still working on it. They're looking at what they can do with Jenny Stokes for access to Kathleen. And we will be looking at this site once we get things approved as to what we can do there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Figuring this is going to be our home for the foreseeable future.
I'll hold you to that.
And Troy, you've had some conversations, to follow up on Dan's point about a master plan there. You've had some conversations with streets, fire, and police. Once water vacates and moves to their new facility, you've had some initial conversations in regards to facilities up there. You might just share that with council. It's obviously not in a formalized plan. I think that Dan's idea is a good idea to have a master plan, but you have done some groundwork, initial groundwork to work towards that point.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you, and great presentation, Terry. I'd also like to comment that the Water Department has zero debt. There is no debt with this department. The master plan on the North Campus, as we call it, is also incorporating our friends in Parks and Recreation, as we have Jenny Stokes Field up there, and the use of the micro soccer fields, combined with some parking that is available or potentially available, and the use of the restrooms that are at Fire Station 2, which are real important for little people that need to go do those types of things. So we have been working with all of those departments, including the work with our police department, as we have a very full building up there with a limited amount of parking. So we are working on it. We're doing it at the very low cost with staff and planning departments and things like that. So we're going to bring that forward, especially as this contract comes together.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Terry or Troy? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 19016, which is an agreement with La Riviere Construction Incorporated for $2,660,000 to build a new water department administration and maintenance building that's also going to include art. Are we going to name this building?
That's something we need to look at, yes.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Kelly?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Edinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Next on the list is Resolution Number 19-017, an agreement with Walker Construction as a general contractor for the Memorial Grandstand remodel. Bill Greenwood.
Good evening, everybody. This has been a long project coming back to all of you. If you recall, we rejected bids, or you rejected bids back last fall and asked staff to look for qualifications for someone to do the construction manager. We had three firms. La Riviera was one, Geno was the other, and Walker was the third. They were so tight that we decided to have a face-to-face with all three firms. During that time, La Riviera moved up a notch, but Walker was the winner. So we've been working with Walker, and the last time I brought this before you, you wanted numbers. So I didn't want to come back to you with just a construction manager who won the RFQ. I want to come back with some numbers. So we've been beating this horse a bunch on trying to get the numbers. We were over budget a bunch. Derek Allen with Walker Construction worked really hard at going back to his subs and trying to get the numbers. He went back to the well a second time, and the numbers kept getting higher. They weren't getting lower. So we were overbid every time. We would have been better off on the hard bid that we rejected back in October. So we went way over. So I came to General Services, and we chatted about that a little bit, and I was asked to try and whittle some more. And Christy Wood was there along with Chris Martin, and they suggested that they would be agreeable to a phasing idea. So that got me thinking. How can we phase this? And one of the driving factors on the construction that was driving us up was the excavation underneath and the tight work that they were working in. So they were working basically a box in a box, right? So the grandstand is a wedge, and we're building a box inside that box. So clearance was difficult. It was all really labor intensive to get the stuff excavated, get down to the footings. So I thought, well, why don't we just pull those elements out? Those elements are the restroom, the concession stand, and locker rooms. On either end, there was a storage room and a ticket booth. So we were trying to utilize all that space. Once we pulled all of that out, we got real close to being in budget. So I reached out to Christy, and she said that she had spoken with the pres at NIC, and I spoke to Chris Martin, and he had spoke with the pres at NIC, and they were agreeable to the idea of, instead of putting it underneath there, we have an old restroom across the street at City Park that needs to be replaced. It's 45 years old, 40 years old, thereabouts. So my suggestion was that we raise that building, put new restrooms there, and add locker rooms so that NIC could still have their locker rooms. And everybody seemed to be agreeable to that idea. The only the people that I have not shown this to, this idea, is Ignite, our funding partner. So I'd like to be able to take that to them for their nod on this idea. So you would still get the grandstands looking, here's how it looks now, and you would end up getting this. Ultimately, what we would do is we'd leave everything exactly the same. So what you have on the outside will be refurbished. We're just removing the elements inside and underneath the belly, and that's it. Now, from this side, this is a rendering that was done long ago, and these bleachers aren't in the plan, just so you'll know. They're in there, but that was taken out long ago to save, I think it was $90,000, it seems like, comes to my mind. But that's the idea, is to have it, just the outside, get refurbished. So I have to tell you that we went from 453,000 over to down to, and there's a mistake that I made, and I apologize for that immensely. Thank you, Councilman Gookin, for bringing it to my attention. We are over budget now. We've got that down, trimmed down to $1,253,003. We're over budget by $22,000, $635. And so what I'm asking tonight is that the commissioners, my park commissioners, are agreeable to taking that overage, or that shortfall, out of the park's capital. We're already pulling 136 out of that. We'd pull another 22 out, and we could make this project happen.
Bill, a question for you. As part of this whole thing, there's obviously some things that need to be shored up inside
correct.
Of that grandstand.
And all that would be done.
So all of the work to preserve this grandstand is going to be done.
Correct.
So it's not just putting something that looks nice on the outside.
No.
This is going to be constructed so it's going to last for another.
Correct. They're going to go in there, and they're going to redo footings, and they're going to shore things up, and they're going to clad some of those posts that are inside there. And the bleachers themselves will get overclad and repainted with an epoxy type paint. So all of that will look fresh and new. And you're correct. Inside, they're going to beef it up. And so even the members that go all the way up to the roof are going to get shoring up as well. So all of that element is still in there. The only thing is, you could just look at that restroom facility, and all those other elements just get, that box gets pulled out, and everything else structurally is still completed.
Because I would imagine there's some issues inside.
There are,
that
absolutely.
grandstand.
There's some pretty cool construction in there, that the way they've datoed some of those beams that are this big and how they've connected them. It's pretty nice craftsmanship, but it's not up to code today.
Yeah. Questions for Bill?
Go ahead.
Dan?
This sounds like a reasonable approach. And I guess if NIC is good with the kind of the timeline and, restroom and all of that across the street, but one thing for the public's kind of point of view, is there still a chance down the road that concessions could go under there, or it's done and over?
Thank you. So when the park commissioners and I walked this last week, we went inside. And one of the things that I was thinking about, since they were getting more popular, are food trucks. So we might be able to carve out a spot in the parking near a power facility that we could pull in some power. Then we were thinking and talking about it, well, this coming weekend, we're going to close Fort Round Drive. Maybe that's a location that we could allow a food truck in if they were self-supporting. If they needed power, there's another location. So we have some alternatives that we could maybe go back in and do that at a later date. The cost might be pretty good. I think the idea of a food truck is a real sensible and easy one that wouldn't cost us as much money, and we might get a couple food trucks in there if it warrants it. I don't know if the lady that used to do it occasionally, Ruth Barker, back 20 years ago, 18 years ago, made a little bit of money, but she was there in the evening, and people were trying to do it before they were getting there for the lunch crowd, and there wasn't any action going on, so they weren't making much money. The food truck might be the way to go.
Kiki?
I just think that it looks like it's about $400,000 less than what it was when it came to Public Works. Is that about the number? That's a big trim, and I think that reminding us where all the funding partner sources came from. Ignite's a source, but North Idaho College put money into
Correct.
this facility.
And Parks Capital, and actually went back to the well with Ignite again to add some more to those ad alternates that we had. But we're keeping some of those ad alternates, but we're trimming it and by pulling out, like I say, the restroom.
Okay, well, I think the food truck idea is a good one to solve that concession problem, and I'm happy that you went back again and that the funding partners are happy with this new plan to try to stay within that budget.
And our hope is that, we could budget for it for next year a little bit better, and we'll still be pulling money out of Parks Capital when we get this done across the street. But that Bricks restroom, as we call it, the Bricks, was on our long-range plan, well, kind of a short-range plan. It was, it was needing to be taken out here in the next few years. And so it fits in with something that we've already had in mind. And our programs wouldn't use the locker rooms. It would just be for NIC. So our thinking is we would just have it tagged on the end. It'd be a box, right, or a rectangle, and they'd have 2 doors and 2 separate for visitor and home. And we would lock it up when NIC's not using it. We wouldn't utilize that at all.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Ron?
I move for the adoption of Resolution 19-017.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan?
No, my questions were asked by Dan and Kiki, and I was just going to say I like the food truck idea, and I like the fact that we do have potential to go back in there and add something in the future because it's structurally, I guess, sound enough to do that.
Right.
I think I've been supportive of this. I hope we get backing from Ignite. I know they still want to be informed, but I hope that they're
I think that's only
completely
fair,
on board
and I
with
was
this.
just moving fast and trying to get this done, and so I spoke with Mr. Burns, and he's been trying to get me on the agenda, and I don't know if it's going to be this week. I've not heard. I'll be out of town the following week, so it may be the first week in June when I can get before that board and present this thing.
So if it goes well.
Thank you.
I have heard that there's someone that wants the Cardinal a little bigger. So somebody might be
Well,
negotiating to see if that Cardinal
the
can be
Cardinal at 150 was about like this.
Was it? So the,
And it could get a little bit bigger.
Any other questions? Roll call, please. Kelly?
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Edinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our final piece of business tonight is Council Bill Number 19-1005, amendments to various municipal code sections regarding parking regulations. And there's a lot of numbers here. Troy Tymason is going to talk to us about that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I bring before you a portion of the reworking of your parking code in the city code. It's primarily triggered by the Memorial Field additional parking area and very much triggered by the Coeur d'Alene parking garage. This has been reviewed by your parking commission, and the parking commission has more work that they want to do in our code to continue to update it. So I believe that's where all of the different parking lots would rest that aren't identified in this document. The police department has put their fingerprints on this and reviewed it as well. So we bring this before you because it is part of the city code, and our legal team has worked through a number of the different sections in here, and the goal was to consolidate. The goal was to make the language more readable, have it be consistent. As you know, we have many parking lots that have continued to ebb and flow and move a little bit, so they consolidated those and got them named all correctly. Again, we mentioned the skateboard area as well as the freestyle park over at Sherry Hill. So a large amount of work and credit goes to your parking commission as well as legal and then police for overseeing it. The monthly parking permit program continues to be a great success. The Coeur d'Alene Avenue parking garage is an example of that. And so we have gained clarity on our permit program and expanded it so that it is better defined. The parking commission looks at that on a monthly basis through the reports that go to that committee. The city administrator in this update would be able to work on these policies and procedures for the program, and in this, you would give the administrator position discretion to waive parking fees for community or park events and exempt special events that come forward. The financial analysis, there's not a great impact to the city because the fees are not in this particular code amendment. And we believe that this amendment helps both our police department as well as our constituents. It allows us to do better signage in those parking areas so that folks understand what the rules are. So again, you have the ultimate authority on this, but it's been a collaborative effort and it hopefully reads better and is more impactful. I would stand for any questions you may have.
Questions for Troy? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so you touched upon this item in your report, and it's D, exceptions. Number 2, which is new, city administrator may waive parking fee in whole or part for community events or park events open to the general public in any parking facility. Number 3, city administrator may exempt persons attending a special event from complying with any or all of the regulations of this chapter pertaining to one of the more parking facilities. This kind of cuts council out of the picture.
It's not intended to, because many of these events come up with very short notice where we can't get to you if there is something that needs to be done in a rapid manner.
For example?
A special event that they came in and wanted to have, rent a parking lot, rent the whole thing.
Yeah, specific example.
A parking event at Independence Point.
No, one that's happened in the past.
The silver car auctions.
We don't know about that even though it's an annual thing?
We don't know that they're going to come in every year.
Oh.
And that would give the latitude so that when I'm approving that because they choose to come in 2 weeks or 3 weeks ahead of time, to take advantage of that, charge them the fees that are appropriate and get that one done.
But that's weeks ahead of time.
And sometimes we don't have 3 weeks to get in front of you.
I understand that there's a certain efficiency, I don't like that word, but there's a certain, it's more effective to not wait 2 weeks for a meeting that we approve something, but I also know that we used to approve in our consent calendar beer and wine licenses, and we don't do that anymore. Is there any way you can add a mechanism in here that we get a heads up, or there's something that we are told about, you know, because Kelly does a good job of sending us those beer and wine licenses now to let us know that, you know, something normally we would approve. Is there any way, can we add language in here so that when you do make an exemption that council's kind of informed?
We could do heads up as a effective communication tool.
Okay, how do we implement that?
We just add that to this with your motion tonight to include it in the heads up.
Okay.
So Dan, so I'm looking at these, so maybe the last line would be communicating, once a waiver is done, immediately communicating that with council, or
Yeah.
whatever that language may
Something,
be.
that you could add just number 4, that if any of those items, any exceptions made, that council would be informed in a heads up. I mean, that would be one quick way to do it.
Okay.
I also have a concern, and I've expressed this before, and it's just on the next page if you have the paper copy. So it's section C, numbers 8, 9, and 10. So number 8 is, no person shall operate or ride a skateboard, roller skates, rollerblades, fun things, in other words, that have wheels. Within a parking facility, this prohibition shall not apply to the use of wheeled equipment necessary for ambulatory or disabled person. So in all of our parking lots, we're banning skateboards and rollerblades, sleds, wagons, scooters, in all of our parking lots. Number 9, no person shall enter or remain within a parking facility for any purpose other than to park or retrieve a vehicle to access public properties. This is public property and people have a right to peaceably assemble. We're telling them they can't do that in a parking garage, and I know I've brought this up before when we did it on the McEwen garage, but now it's going to be every single parking lot.
The lots that are mentioned in this section, correct?
Can we legally deny people the right to peaceably assemble on public property? I mean, I'm afraid there's going to be a lawsuit. You get some kids who are just standing around, and I don't think our police are going to be actively enforcing this, but they ticket them. That seems to me to be a violation of rights.
I
Mr.
would let
Attorney?
legal weigh in on that.
I think you can designate places that are appropriate for people to exercise those rights, and you can, just like you can't come into my office in City Hall and have a protest, or you can't come into certain other areas that would be public property and do a protest. So it's a good question and one that we may bump into, but I think we can move people to other places.
Thank you. And then number 10, smoking of cigarettes, cigars, pipes, or other lighted or heated devices intended for inhalation is prohibited in any enclosed area of a parking facility, so we're banning smoking in our parking garage, the 2 that we have.
Yep.
Okay. And how's that going to be enforced?
Just like any other city ordinance, working with our police department if it's found,
Okay.
and the signage will reflect that.
All right. Okay, well, I do have enforcement issues with that and a rights issue with number 9, just to let everyone know.
Woody?
So there's some story behind those. Can you elaborate a little how these came to be so specific? Because I think they're valid.
How
Gently.
How the ordinance
Yeah.
became so specific?
Well, 8, 9, 10, how those just didn't come out of us trying to be bad guys.
No, I would imagine there is the enforcement side of this that wanted the specificity so that when a ticket is written, it can reference the code section that speaks to it. Not that you see a lot of those done, but our police department is able to then make sure we're keeping the facilities as positive as we can. I would imagine most of those sections would be folks that are down there doing things that are not ideal for the rest of the constituency.
Seems to me that when the garage first opened, that we had some incidences of this becoming a norm down there. And you kind of push them along, but this sort of firms it up a little.
Totally firms it up. The other side is, the garage is seeing activity now with the skateboards. It definitely is a downhill ramp, and that's not safe for anyone. So without this coming to fruition, we don't have any rules that say you can't do that.
I'm with you, Dan. I don't like making rules, but I've learned that sometimes if you don't make the rule, then they can just kind of blow it off and there's no consistency. And I agree, the enforcement's going to be its own deal, but at least it's there if they need to use it.
And I just don't like making rules I don't think we're ever going to enforce, so, but I understand what you're saying, too.
All right, any other questions for Troy? Kiki?
Just 2 things. I think you were answering my question at the beginning on, Troy and I talked earlier on why not the other parking lots that are within the community, like Midtown and Sunset, Bluegrass, and all of those. So if I understand correctly, then as they come online as a city-owned property, then they'll be included as verbiage into being named into this ordinance?
And we'll also go through the rest of the parking ordinances, look to consolidate, aggregate, and have them make sense. So that would be the next step that our parking commission is taking on, which they just brought up at their last meeting. You'll read about that in the minutes, and we will work our legal team to help us with that. So yes, you are very astute on that answer.
Okay. I just was glad to hear that police had weighed in, because it sounds like for a while there'll be a couple different sets of rules for parking lots within the city. And so if that's in that rule part that I went, that could be a little confusing for people, that the rules apply at one place that they don't somewhere else. So I guess we'll wait until those come online and hope that that becomes more consistent. The other thing I wanted to make sure that I understood is that with this new permit parking, the parking commission will be the one who will, that organization will govern the gross amount of available parking places per lot and determine that there's 40% maximum. Once they've determined that that's a lot, that parking permits would be eligible. So that's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and they'll decide that.
And we get to manage that to that 40% that we've put in here, and it also applies to our parking manager. So it's a real guideline that we're sending to our parking managers, actually, in this situation with Diamond and Coeur d'Alene Parking Services helping us with the different parking lots.
And so that'll be consistent for a consistent overview to say that this parking lot's eligible for permit parking because it's close enough to add benefit to the local businesses and citizens. Then those guidelines will apply to the decision-making of how many spots can be a monthly permit.
Correct.
Okay.
And what the turnover is. Yep.
Okay.
Ron?
Yeah, Troy, when can we expect to see the foot patrol for the police department down on Sherman and by the skate plaza?
Immediately. We have them deployed. They are out and about, and they have their ATV is out. Some of them are certified to be on the bikes, so they are out currently, council member, just before Memorial Day, so yes.
Okay.
So if you want to get away with it, do it now.
This evening.
Any other questions for Troy? If no other questions, we'd be looking for council action.
So the first motion is just to dispense with the rule. So I would move that we dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 19-1005 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Kelly, if you could read the title, please.
An ordinance provided for the amendment of the following sections of the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code: 2.66.020, 4.05.030, 4.15.010, 4.15.020, 4.15.030, 4.15.040, 4.15.120, 4.15.30, and 8.48.030, provided for the repeal of the following sections of the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code: 4.15.060, 4.15.070, 4.15.080, 4.15.090, 4.15.100, 4.15.110, and 4.15.115, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for the severability, providing for the publication of the summary of the ordinance, and providing for an effective date thereof.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English,
Yes.
Edinger,
Yep.
Motion carried.
And now I will attempt to make a motion and not upset Kelly too much, because I'm going to make a motion to adopt Council Bill 19-1005 with the addition of language in Section D that council be informed when the city administrator waives parking fees or makes exceptions.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
Is that good enough, Mr. Gridley? Thank you.
Further discussion on that item? Dan?
And even though that was my motion, I'll be voting against it, and which I can do, because I don't like the items that we had already discussed regarding skateboards and people being in the parking facility, which I think they have a right to do, and cigarettes, which I have an issue with, but I don't mind.
All right. Any further discussion?
Dan, do you still want to second that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, motion's cool.
Okay, so no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gevers,
Yeah.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes.
Edinger,
Yep.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.